Be a Kid's Last Coach. When I first started Paradigm Sports a couple of years ago, I used the acronym. It was time for a paradigm shift in youth sports, and it kind of resonated with people, and it didn't. A year later, I came up with we must make youth sports safe to fail again. That also was only kind of resonating with some people. But when I did a talk for Changing the Game project in Alberta for Alberta Lacrosse AGM, and I ended it with "Don't be a kid's last coach," I had probably 100 people come up to me and goes, "You nailed it." I never looked at it in that perspective. Hence, that's why the tagline, and that's why the subject of this presentation. I want you to kind of look at these images. They're all images that resonate with me from my past youth sports experience. I was a sports junkie as a kid, and literally every one of these pictures are ones that I did avidly as a kid. Growing up in Montreal, I had the opportunity to play indoor hockey on ice surfaces, but I really had, and what I really enjoyed the most was when we had an opportunity to play on the pond or on an outdoor rink. Sadly, most of those outdoor rinks in Canada now are not being used because of global warming, but that was probably the most fun I ever had, was when I played hockey. My soccer experience was limited primarily to unorganized sport, playing at recess, playing at lunchtime, playing after school, but I did love the game, and the 1 year that I did play is only because I could only squeeze it in because I was playing so many other sports. One of my favorite movies that I've watched with my family is Sandlot. And the kid actually kind of looks like me in my youth. When he's standing up there like Babe Ruth, 1935 is when he retired, and we still talk about Babe. And it was when he was hitting it out of the park. Baseball is a sport that I just truly loved to play, but I'm not a big fan of watching it. The basketball pickup, Michael Jordan. He had a contract in his contract. He had for the love of the game clause where he could play wherever. It was kind of like when I was a kid. I only played probably in grade 7, grade 8 organized basketball, but I loved playing outdoors with my buddies. And probably the most fun I ever had playing basketball is when one of my buddies in grade 10s in our PE class said, "Hey, how about we play tackle basketball?" Everybody in our class was either playing football, rugby, or hockey, and that was probably the most fun I ever had. And we fortunately had a good PE teacher that allowed us to do it, and there's no way that kids would be able to do that today. Biking was something I loved, but it was also a necessity. It was a necessity because my father passed away when I was really young, and my mother did not drive. She had a really bad accident when she was about 22, so my whole livelihood growing up is if I had to go somewhere, I had to get on my bike to do it. As we got older, we started relying on a cab driver who became a friend, a really close personal friend of ours. Again, because of my growth, growing up in Montreal, snowball fights. And when we had all the snow this past winter in BC, every single time it dumped, I was out there with my kids having snowball fights, because so rarely have we had the opportunity to do that in British Columbia. And that's probably the biggest thing that contributed to my baseball playing experience, is learning that throw. So I want you just to think about an activity, if any of these resonate with you, or something that you did in your youth, and why you did it. Why did you play those activities when you were younger? Why did you play them? Anybody? Because it was fun, and you played it for the love of the game. That's why we're here. That's why we came up with this theme for the conference. We did it for the love of the game, and we absolutely loved it. But what is missing from all these pictures? What's missing?
Parents.
There's no parents.
Coach.
There's no coaches. There's no referees. When we went and did our free play activities, what did we do? We went to the park and we formed our own teams, and we enforced our own rules. Bobby Orr says one of the reasons why he became the player he became was as a result of all that time he played in Parry Sound with no parents and no coaches. So that was then, and this is now. I have a 1999 birth year son and a 1995 birth year daughter, so they're not quite kids anymore. My daughter is now an adult, 22. They have had the misfortune of going through the sports system in the last 15 years, but this is their life. This is what they know. 1994 was the evolution of the video game industry with the PlayStation. Netflix was introduced in 1997. It took forever before it really got launched throughout the world because of the requirement for infrastructure. But the big monster was Google in 1998. I'm old enough to remember what it was like to surf the internet with the old platforms and how long it took. I'm also old enough to remember dial-up. was very painful. 2001, the digital era really started to take off when Apple introduced iTunes and how we access digital media. And they introduced the iPod, which was the #1 selling media player for the longest time, and now they're discontinuing it because of the success with the iPhone. It also was when Xbox was introduced. So between the Xbox and the Sony PlayStation, they have totally revolutionized the video game industry and has now become a sport, which I really painfully can't admit. E-gamers are playing video games. They have sponsorships. They're making tons of money. What also happened in 2001? Anyway? I apologize if I can't see you because I had these lights right down blue. What happened in 2001? 9/11. 9/11 was also, I remember it like it was yesterday sometimes because the morning of 9/11 I was on the phone with a sales manager that I was working with, and he was driving his car in New York. He had a headset. And all of a sudden I heard this loud boom, and he said, "Holy," and that was the end of the call. I wasn't able to track him down for another day, but when I got him on the phone, I said, "What happened?" He said, "When I was driving, I saw the second plane hit the tower." That's how close I know about 9/11, and many of the people that he worked with knew that people lost their lives in that tragedy. Ironically, that was also the same day that I signed the mortgage on my house. So I will never forget 9/11. Blu-ray disc, I was at Consumer Electronics Show when they were introducing it versus HD DVD. Does anybody remember HD DVD? Kind of lasted maybe a year, and it got blown out by Blu-ray. But the big monster, what revolutionized the whole industry and what kids depend on so much today is Facebook. In 2004, it's only 13 years old. They have a company valuation of over $97 billion. Huge. YouTube a year later. Twitter and the infamous Wii that tried to add and take away from the negative stigma of video game consoles, make them active. Then the smartphone in 2007. It amazes me that the iPhone is only 10 years old. How many in this room have an iPhone? Still about 75% of the market. And then the rest of us probably have a Samsung. And it's going to slowly change because Samsung's actually going to be building components for the next iPhone. Instagram is another platform, and then the infamous iPad that introduced tablets to the industry. Why have I gone through this slide? Why have I shown you all the digital era? Because that's what today's generation of kids are going and revolving on. Because my son was born in 1999, he's what's known as Generation Z. They spend 7.5 hours a day in front of a screen, thanks to the iPhone, thanks to the tablet, thanks to the evolution of the digital era. Why does it matter? This is why it matters.
I probably would make a time machine.
I would make medicine for the sick.
I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right?
5 years.
It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter.
I think I'd go looking for aliens.
If I could live an extra 5 years.
I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime.
I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed. If I had 5 more extra years to live, I would be the boss of all the chipmunks.
Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas. I don't really know. I think I'd do anything.
Why are you asking me that?
A video was put together by Design to Move, which is sponsored by Nike. It was done in response to health authorities in Canada and the US projecting today's generation of kids, my kids, may die 5 years sooner than their parents. That's not acceptable, and we have to change it. Why do kids play sports? Why do they play sports? What's the number one reason why they play sports? Fun. That is the number one reason why they play. And I'm going to share with you my personal interviews of kids over the last 10 years of all the teams that I've coached. I'm also going to use some empirical data, and then I'm going to play a great video. I started asking kids in my second year of coaching hockey, they were 6 and 7 years old, why they played hockey. Because I heard through the grapevine that a couple of the players were being forced to play. And that's the last thing you want to do as a parent is force your kid to play. They should want to play the game. So at the beginning of the season, I went around the dressing room and I asked every kid, why are you playing hockey? Every single kid said, because it's fun. So then I went back around the room and I said, okay, what's fun about hockey? And because these were 6 and 7 year old kids, most of them said they loved Timbits. They loved the snacks, they loved the social part, they loved being with their buddies. As the kids started getting older, they started getting a little bit more sophisticated in their answers, and they started talking about the skills of the game. They like to pass, they like to shoot, they like to score. I had a lot of kids that loved body checking when it was still in the game. And a lot of kids talk about being the defenseman or being the goalie, making the big save in a shootout. As they got older, they started talking about the competition, the tournaments, the wind-ups, the pool parties. At no point in all the years and all the teams that I interviewed did I ever have a kid say winning. Not once. Then I asked them the red flag question. And that first year, the reason that I asked the question was because I was anticipating 2 kids to say, because mom's forcing me to play. Not one kid answered the question that way. I asked them what wasn't fun about hockey. What wasn't fun was the adult criticism they were receiving from coaches and parents. And that was 6 and 7 year old kids that were telling me this. As I continued to ask that question over the years, I had more and more kids start talking about the ride home, which I think is probably the least talked about, but one of the biggest contributors to the reason why kids are quitting sports. As the kids continue to get older, one of the big ones that came up is when coaches played their favorites, when coaches are running short benches. And that recently came up with the senior rugby team that I coached this past spring. Over half of the team said that was the reason, was the least fun on their team, is when coaches are playing their favorites. So that was the informal. Here's the formal. University of Notre Dame, it's probably the biggest study that's ever been done. Over 18,000 kids were surveyed, and they asked them, why do they play sports? Number 1 reason, it's fun. Number 2 is to do something they're good at. Number 3, to work on their skills. 4, stay in shape. And 5, to get exercise. It's top 5 reasons. Amanda Visek at the University of Washington, D.C. did a study a few years ago. She did basically the same thing I did, but in a formal setting, and she asked kids why they played. 95% of them said because it was fun. And then she asked them to define the characteristics of why it was fun. She came up with 81 different characteristics of what was fun about youth sports. The top 5 reasons: when they had an opportunity to try their best, when the coach treated them with respect, when they got playing time. 90% of kids would rather play on a losing team in all situations than play on a winning team. 90% would rather play on a losing team. Then when they played well as a team, when they got along with their teammates. Those are the top 5 reasons. In her study, winning actually did come up as one of the responses. It was 48th on the list. There were 47 other reasons why youth sports was fun for kids. 47 other reasons. What has happened in youth sports and the reasons become a winning and cost environment, it's no longer kids playing kids. It's adults competing with other adults through kids. That's the major change from when I played to when maybe all the kids and my kids have gone through. What about the least fun activity? Getting pictures taken. How many of you enjoyed getting your pictures taken when you played sports? I hated it. I thought it was ridiculous when I was 6, 7, 8 years old, getting in full gear, and there was a hockey rink right beside us. Oh, Johnny, you can't play now. You got to go home. So somehow, some way, we have to figure out a better way to do that, because I know parents and grandparents always want to have the mementos. And sadly, my mother passed away a few years ago, and I have no idea where all my pictures are. They're probably in a bucket somewhere that my brother's got stored away. Now I'm going to play a short video that is from Play by the Rules in Australia. They have 2 spin-offs of it. It's called Let Kids Be Kids. This is the New Zealand version, and there's also an Australian version. They basically ask kids what they loved about sports and what they don't like.
Agnos and let kids be kids. I get to be with my friends and just have fun. When my team scores a goal.
Playing as a team and pick each other up and learn from our mistakes.
Just having a good time, running around.
Hanging out with my friends.
Of course I like running, but I really like hanging out with my mates and playing alongside.
It's really just having fun in the game.
Probably hanging out with my mates.
Having fun with my teammates.
Hanging out with my buddies.
Heaps of parents swear at me. People say, why are you on this team? You're not good enough.
A lot of parents have been calling out, like, kick her, punch her, beat her.
The coach on the other team is swearing about how bad we were.
The supporters would keep yelling at us.
I'm useless. We were crap.
A prick.
You suck, you suck, you suck.
I feel really bad because I know it's going to happen to me. They always do get to me. Make me feel pretty bad about myself.
You kind of failed in it. It just makes me feel sad because I'm just trying to play the game.
Pass, like in a gentle voice. To run hard and to tackle them hard and show no fear. Go, Charlie.
My parents always tell me to do my best no matter what.
I got kicked in the shin for someone by accident. My dad yelled out, it's okay, and that just made me feel better. And then I got back onto the field and then tried my best.
Shush. Shush or go to church.
Shush. If you want to say something, make it positive. I don't want to hear what you want to say about me because you don't really know me.
I would just say, please don't yell out mean things.
It's not very nice to say things like that.
We all make mistakes.
It's just the game. It's not like it's the Rugby World Cup.
Kids be kids. Shush.